What's going on, everybody? Patrick back with our Supercharged BRZ build. Today we're going to be installing some Brembo calipers and some Hawk ER1 pads on the car. Now this is the car's first ever big brake kit, and I've never put some upgraded brakes on the car other than some upgraded pads, fluid, and rotors over the past couple of years tracking this car. But now with the added power of the supercharger, I wanted a little bit more heat capacity and better looking inside of our big 17-inch wheels. So that's what we're gonna do today, and we're using the new Hawk ER1 pad. Let's lift up this car, get our brakes off, and install our new Brembos using our new swap kit from CTSV brakeswap.com. The brakes we've been using so far have been a stock-centric blank rotor and some Carbotech. These are the XP12 pads. So these are also a transfer layer pad, and I've liked to use these a lot. We also had things like the Project Mu Club Racer on here. We've had the G-Lock R12, which are pretty similar to these Carbotechs. And I've had a great time with those when the car is like, you know, stock weight, everything fine. But now we're gonna upgrade to a Brembo. Now, we're gonna take these off and I'll show you guys how bad the dust seals wear on these. And this is my justification for going Brembo, because this is a street-driven car, rather than going to, let's say, an AP kit or an endless big brake kit. We wanted to go with a brake kit with dust shields, so I chose the OEM solution, which is the Cadillac ATS brakes, which I actually got for $200, which is really great value. And I'm pairing it with the 2004 STI rotors. So let's get those installed here, and we'll talk about our brake swap. We are unboxing our package from CTSV brakeswap.com. This includes the swap kit for the Brembos onto Subaru 5x100 cars specifically. Got a couple of spacers which bring the rotor a little bit more forward. And then all of the swap hardware. Okay, cool. Some really big fasteners here. And then we've got the caliper mounting brackets. So this is everything we need to install Brembos on our BRZ. This is the Subaru brake swap caliper. There we go. I'm not sure if there's any sides to these. It looks like there are, so we'll figure out which side goes where. I wish they had them labeled. That's like attention to detail, folks. That is the 14 mil caliper slider off at the bottom. Then we're just gonna slide the top off so the whole caliper releases. And then we got two big 17s at the back here for the caliper mounting bracket. Now we've removed the caliper, the mounting bracket, and the rotor off the car. We have left our hub here, but I want you guys to take a look at this over here. Look how bad these seals got over like wintering and track driving. They've just really eroded, and on the inside of the pistons, they're quite rusty. Now, I knew I was going to be doing a brake change. I also have a spare set of calipers that I was going to put on the car, so I didn't really care about these. But, I mean, in theory, this is pretty unsafe. So, yeah, on a winter-driven car that sees the track days as well, you want to be able to have replaceable dust protection and rust protection. So obviously, these weren't maintained, but we will maintain the ones on the Brembos much better. So let's get to installing the Brembos now. Okay, bracket is out. Rotor is off. And then all we gotta do is drill a 9/16 hole in this top bolt. So the way this conversion kit works is this adapts the holes here, the mounting holes for the old bracket setup for the new one, which is on the Brembo. And for this to work, the Brembo holes are much closer together. That's this distance. So the top of the caliper mounts to the top of the spindle here, and the bottom of the Brembo caliper mounts to this lower hole here. And then this last hole here is threaded, and this goes into the spindle. So we have small 17 mil fastener here, and then two 19s for the caliper. But the stock hole here does not fit the mounting bolt for the caliper. The caliper mounting bolt has to go through this, and this is too small. So we're gonna drill this out with a 9/16 drill bit, and then that'll allow us to put the fastener through and mount to the other side of the caliper, which is threaded. Okay, now that we've drilled our hole, we're gonna be installing the bottom of the caliper mounting bracket. Here it is. I'm gonna be anti-seizing the lower bolt, just out of like best practice, because things get seized all the time here in Canada. This bolt goes in front, the caliper mounting bracket goes behind. So bolt through, and then we can start to thread it. Okay, and we're not going to tighten this to the point where it's like bolted in and torqued already. We're going to torque this down later once we've installed the caliper mounting brackets, because we want this to be able to move so that in case there's a misalignment between these two holes, we can still manipulate the bracket to get these in alignment. And as you can see, after we've drilled it, we can now fit this large screw through. So the caliper mounts to these two screws here, as you guys can see. So we can pull these out and then start getting our spacer in and our rotor on top. Now we're going to be putting a spacer provided by CTSV Brake Swap. So we're just going to clean up the face of this hub, get all of like the big surface level stuff off, and then here is the CTSV Brake Swap spacer. Putting some anti-seize also on the face of this. And then now it's just a rotor and caliper. Another thing I like to do is undo the 12mm bolt that holds the brake line to the spindle. So I like to relieve this brake line so that when we install it onto the new caliper, the brake line has more play, and it's actually a lot easier to place the new banjo bolt into the new caliper. So here's our new brake caliper. Just got it back from paint, aka my garage. We're going to be installing this onto the new CTSV Brake Swap brackets. I'm going to do the caliper installation first so that it doesn't move around when I try to install the new brake lines. We're also going to put some anti-seize on these, because eventually when I do change the rotor, these still need to come off. And in Canadian winters, again, it will not if we don't put this magic anti-seize on it. Actually, correction, I said it was 19, it's actually 18 mil. And then we're also going to tighten the bottom here now that our caliper is in. Feel it out, because I can't actually see it, it's behind the rotor. Now all we got to do is depress the pistons in the caliper so we can fit the new pad. So I'm basically just going to take a wrench and just like gently pry. Alright, we are removing the old banjo bolt from the old caliper. It's going to leak brake fluid everywhere, so again I have that catch at the bottom. Making sure to try our best to not get any brake fluid on the rotor, but probably will, so we'll spray it again after with a brake cleaner. So here's banjo bolt is off, the caliper is off. Remember, we loosened our 12 mil at the bottom there, so we can manipulate this brake line however we want. Okay, so we're gonna let that drip for a second. I have to take out all of this old brake fluid from the system anyway. I'm gonna go get another banjo bolt washer for the end here, and then we will continue with our install. Okay, so banjo bolt on, and then we're gonna carefully try to fasten this guy over here. Perfect. Then can clean everything up. What we'll do now is put in the brake pads, and then we'll do a bleed. The assembly for Brembos is actually a lot simpler than an OEM. All we gotta do after the pistons are depressed, which they are, all we have to do is slide this through. There's one light little coating, so when it contacts those two pistons and moves around, like, it's not so bad. These are assembled using these guide pins and a spring. So how these pins work, they're pretty much like friction fit into the caliper. I'm also going to lubricate the pins because this is where the brake pad slides. So if there's no lubrication on these, then brake pad's not gonna slide. On the back side here, push that guide pin through. It'll go through the first pad, and then make sure our second pad is aligned. Just being careful not to touch too much of the brake surface of the rotor. And then you see it's come through on the other side here. And then we just take a hammer and push in the pin from the other side. So now the pads won't fall into the rotor there. The pads are staying. We just need to add one more guide pin and the spring. Guide pin is greased. We're going to put this caliper spring in through the first pin, and then as we install the second guide pin, we'll depress the spring so that the guide pin can slide through. So here's the next pin, goes through the spring, and then into the next hole in the caliper here. So we'll just manipulate that spring a little bit, and then again come around with the hammer. That is a complete Brembo assembly of the 2004 STI rotor. The Brembo on the Cadillac ATS adapted to the BRZ using the CTSV brake swap adapter bracket. And we have the Hawk ER1 pads, and that is the complete installation. We are now going to bleed the brakes, and that should be it for the rest of the mechanical work on upgrading the car. I'm really excited about what the state of the car is now. We have the power, we've got the brakes to match. Okay, and a quick story time about the brakes. So you guys saw the rest of the video here where I installed it on my car. We actually did have a pretty critical failure where I was trying to bleed the brakes, get the air out of the system from when I installed it, and then put new fluid in. Fortunately, these broke, the bleeder valves. So to make this a really cost-effective big brake kit, I would highly recommend, if you get these on used market, replace the bleeder valves or get a machine shop to replace the bleeder valves before you even try putting them on the car. So the calipers are brand new and serviceable once you get them ready, and you don't have the same issue where I had to go to a shop and have them take the calipers off, bleed them, do all this other stuff, where that was all avoidable. So yeah, added quite a bit more cost to these. $200 caliper, $200 rotor, $300 for the pads, $400 for the conversion kit, and then like $700 in machine shop time to replace these bleed valves. But now I know that I have a pretty robust brake setup here. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial for our Brembo big brake kit on the BRZ. If you guys like the content and you want to see this car get on the track, hit that subscribe button and look out for our future videos where we do take the car to the track. At this point in the recording, these already have 3 track days on them. As you can see, the paint has just discolored, which is exactly what we expected, and now the car looks track worn, battle scarred up, just as we prefer. I will see you guys at the track. Peace.